Tēnā koe, Paul. Thank you. It's lovely to have you here to MC this event. We really appreciate it. Ngā mihi. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā karangatanga maha tēnā koutou. On behalf of the Arts Council of Creative New Zealand, I am very pleased to welcome the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, to present the Prime Minister's Awards for Literary Achievement. This evening brings together a cross-section of people passionate about New Zealand literature. It's wonderful to have you all here tonight to celebrate some of our greatest writers. I also want to acknowledge my fellow council members of the Arts Council, Creative New Zealand staff, and the panel members, David Eggleton, Lydia Weavers, Maureen Rout and John Huria, who have had the important task of assessing the public nominations for this year's awards and choosing the winners in each category. I'd like to extend my thanks to the lotto-paying public of New Zealand, who make a generous contribution to the Arts Council through the New Zealand Lottery Arts Grants Board. Sorry, that would be good. The Lottery Grants Board. And I also acknowledge the long-standing support of the Crown in helping the arts in New Zealand flourish. Finally, a very warm welcome to the recipients of the 2019 Prime Minister's Awards for Literary Achievement, as well as the 2019 recipient of the Creative New Zealand Michael King Writers' Fellowship, who will also honour this evening. The Prime Minister's Awards for Literary Achievement recognise notable literary achievement by New Zealand writers who have made a significant contribution to New Zealand literature in the genres of non-fiction, fiction and poetry. Since its inception in 2003, 48 of our most treasured and accomplished writers have been recognised with this prestigious acknowledgement. Tonight, another 3 such writers take their place in history. For each recipient, tonight's awards celebrate and acknowledge an extraordinary body of work over careers devoted to bringing New Zealand stories and history to life. Their contributions to New Zealand literature are both immense and inspiring. On a more sombre note, I want also to acknowledge the passing of 2 of New Zealand's literary treasures. Beloved children's author Jack Lazenby, who was honoured with the Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement for Fiction in 2014, and legendary writer, playwright and filmmaker Peter Wells, who was awarded the Creative New Zealand Michael King's Fellowship in 2011. We will miss both of them. Haere atu rā e moi. Tonight we also award the biennial Creative New Zealand Michael King Writers' Fellowship, which was renamed in recognition of the late Michael King for his contribution to literature and his role in advocating for a major fellowship for New Zealand writers. And I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Michael's whānau, Jonathan, lovely to see you. It's been heartening to see the many great achievements and positive developments in the literary sector. Tonight, I want to highlight just a few. I'm very excited to see that the Prime Minister has recently launched the Kotahi Rao Puka Puka Trust, an initiative that will see 100 books published in Te Reo Māori. Thank you, Prime Minister, for your leadership in this space. We continue to see growth in attendance at major literary festivals in Auckland and Christchurch, and the addition of some new smaller festivals launched, such as Words Will Work in South Auckland and the crime fiction-focused Rotorua Noir. Finally, the launch of a new pan-literature sector organisation, the Coalition for Books New Zealand, to boost sales, visibility and audiences for New Zealand books and authors is also a noteworthy milestone for the literary community. I'd like to recognise the community of support evident in this room tonight and applaud those whose energy and drive continue to ensure that a career in literature remains an attainable aspiration. So let's get this special evening under the way, and I'd like to invite the Right Honourable Prime Minister of New Zealand to the stage.
Kia ora koutou katoa na mihi nui kia koutou talofa lava malola lei whakalofi lahi atu kia ora ana. And welcome. welcome to my home, which is really your home, and you're always more than welcome here. It's always a special treat for me to be able to host this particular event, and I want to acknowledge Michael, Stephen, I think Bernadette, Kevin might be here as well, and all those who provide leadership in our arts community on a day-to-day basis. Now, I was thinking about all the things that I could possibly say this evening, and when those around me help support me for events like this, they're always willing to give me a little nudge about the things they thought I should talk about, which is most helpful. Things like the work we've done to try and boost the remuneration of our artists through the last budget, the additional funding to Creative New Zealand so that we actually pay our artists a living wage. How novel. Like the work we're doing to reinvent and modernise PACE, like the work we're doing on the lending rights, which is well overdue, like the reinstatement of artists in schools, these little gems that I'm proud that we're furthering our work around. But when I thought about who I was talking to tonight, I thought actually what I'd rather do is in my own way try and say thank you for the work that our writers do. And I've chosen an odd way to say thank you. I've chosen to do it through the words of a writer. Some of you may have heard me talk before about some of my favourite writers, and I have a long list of New Zealand writers who I cherish, but there's also a Polish poet who I particularly love, whose name is Wisława Szymborska. She won the Nobel Prize in 1996, and she gave a speech which to this day I find particularly inspiring. And my way of saying thank you was actually to reflect some of her words back to you about the life she had and felt that she led as a poet, because there's something about her words and the way that she is so humble in her expressions that remind me a little bit of our Kiwi artists. So, if you'll indulge me. She says, contemporary poets are sceptical and suspicious even, or perhaps especially about themselves. They publicly confess to being poets only reluctantly, as if they were a little ashamed of it. When filling in questionnaires or chatting with strangers, that is, when they can't avoid revealing their profession, poets prefer to use the general term writer, or replace poet with the name of whatever job they do in addition to writing. In more fortunate countries where human dignity isn't assaulted so readily, poets yearn, of course, to be published, read and understood. It's not accidental that film biographies of great scientists and artists are produced in droves. The more ambitious directors seek to reproduce convincingly the creative process that led to important scientific discoveries or the emergence of a masterpiece. Films about painters can be spectacular as they go about recreating every stage of a famous painting's evolution, from the first penciled line to the final brushstroke. Music swells in films about composers. The first bars of the melody that rings in the musician's ears finally emerge as a mature work in symphonic form. Of course, this is all quite naive and doesn't explain the strange mental state popularly known as inspiration, but at least there's something to look at and to listen to. But poets are the worst. Their work is hopelessly unphotogenic. Someone sits at a table or lies on a sofa while staring motionless at a wall or a ceiling. Once in a while, this person writes down several lines, only to cross them out 15 minutes later, and then another hour passes, during which nothing happens. Who could stand to watch this kind of thing? I've mentioned inspiration. Contemporary poets answer evasively when asked what it is and if it actually exists. It's not that they've never known the blessing of this inner impulse. It's just not easy to explain something to someone else that you don't understand yourself. When I'm asked about this on occasion, I hedge the question too. But my answer is this. Inspiration is not the exclusive privilege of poets or artists or writers. There is, has been, and always will be a certain group of people whom inspiration visits. It's made up of all those who consciously chosen their calling and do their job with love and imagination. It may include doctors, teachers, gardeners, and I could list 100 more. Their work becomes one continuous adventure as long as they manage to keep discovering new challenges. Difficulties and setbacks never quell their curiosity. A swarm of new questions emerges from every problem they solve. Whatever inspiration it is, it's born from a continuous I don't know. If anyone hasn't read the rest of Sarah's speech before, I really encourage you to do so, but the impression it's left me as someone who appreciates the written word but has never been grabbed by that internal struggle of trying to channel inspiration onto a page over long, continuous, tortured hours. I'm deeply grateful that there are those who do grapple with that challenge, who are willing to ask continuously, regardless of the judgment of society around them, are willing to continually ask the question, I don't know. And to do that day in, day out, so that the rest of us can benefit from those sources of inspiration and that willingness to question. So to all of you in this room who engage in that tortured, drawn-out process, I say thank you. To those of you who we are acknowledging tonight, I add my additional thanks, my gratitude, and really say to you that you are a source of inspiration to so many of us. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ngā mihi. And now to the presentation part of the evening. The winner of this year's prestigious Creative New Zealand Michael King Writers' Fellowship is an award-winning writer, illustrator, historian and academic. Her books for children include Tangaroa's Gift, Te Koha Tangaroa from 1990, winner of the 2011 Storylines Galen Gordon Award, and Te Treaty, The Treaty in 2003, and a 2004 Storylines Notable Non-Fiction book. Other awards include the Choice Bursary for Children's Writers in 1998 and a Te Ha Award for Māori Writers in 1991. As Māori History Fellow at the Ministry for Culture and Heritage from 2001 to 2003, she completed a history of Ngāi Tahu Matawhaiti, a carved coke for tahu. In 2011, she became coordinating historian for the Sites of Significance project of Te Tira Whakaimi o Te Wairoa treaty claims. She then researched and provided expert witness for Rongomai Waihene's iwi's Takutai Moana Marine and Coastal Act claim. In 2015, she received the Michael King Writers Centre Māori Writers Residency, and in 2017 spent 6 months in Dunedin as the University of Otago College of Education Creative New Zealand Children's Writer in Residence. Earlier this year, she was awarded the Creative New Zealand Michael King Writers Fellowship to work on a project called Rongoā, Heal the Land, Heal the People, described by assessors as very necessary to our current cultural moment, and one that will bring to wide attention the customs, practices and mutual differences of Māori and Pākehā in relationship to the land, offering a way forward founded on a fusion of mātauranga and Western science. This evening it is with great honour that we have her here to receive acknowledgement for this great achievement. Please welcome Dr. Mere Whanga, who belongs to Ngāti Rongomai Waihere, Ngāti Kahungunu, Ngāti Pahauwera.
Ka whiowhio mai te hau, mai te motu tapu o Waikawa ki tai porutu. Porutu ana te tai, rere ana te wai, tūtonu tō mātou whenua ko tai porutu. Tūtonu mātou, te aitanga awhanga ki tai porutu. Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nunui ki a te piremia. Mō tō mihi mai, mō tēnei wā. Ngā mihi nunui ki a ora, ki a te kaumātua, e mihi mai, e karakia mai. Ngā mihi tonu nunui ki a ngā kaimahi, ki a ngā rangatira o Creative New Zealand. Thank you all. Particular thanks to Creative New Zealand for this fellowship. The book I'm about to embark on is something that has been very important to me. It will put together a lifetime's learning. As a child, my father gave me the job of looking after our land, and the book will record everything he taught me, plus everything I've learned through writing, through research, through academic study. It will record a system that we are calling ahikaro, a system of sustainable land use that has grown through more than 20 generations of our family. So to have this fellowship is really special because we have already embarked on the healing of our land by planting trees with the 1 Billion Trees Fund, which is helping us, so thank you. And we're doing it in a sustainable manner. I think also long-term friend Lynn, she has stuck by me since we were 14, and my whānau and friends, other friends who are here. Kia ora, Richard. It is wonderful to be here. So it's been a 30-year journey, and back in 1988 I got the Choicer bursary, and there was a Pākehā man who was standing in the back of the room when it was presented to me. He had hair in a ponytail, he was wearing a black leather jacket, he had black jeans and what looked suspiciously like black cowboy boots. And he came up to me, the Māori recipient, and he said to me, "Mere, let's do a waiata." And it was Michael King. And I said then, "Sorry Michael, I don't do waiata." And I'm doing the same here tonight. I'm not going to do a waiata tonight either. Plus also my friend Richard said to me, he said, anyway, if you're only allowed a minute, it takes more than a minute to sing the 29 verses of Pene Pene Te Kura. Kia ora rā. That's it.
The winner of the 2019 Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement for Non-Fiction is a children's book author and illustrator with 70 books to his name. His work ranges from non-fiction to original stories, retelling of Māori myths, European fairy stories and nursery rhymes. His recent children's non-fiction book, Aotearoa, the New Zealand Story, has been a bestseller since its release in 2017 and won the Margaret Mahy Book of the Year and the Elsie Locke Award for Non-Fiction at the New Zealand Book Awards for Children and Young Adults last year. Other award-winning non-fiction works include an illustrative memoir for children, Piano Rock, a 1950s childhood memoir, the Storylines Notable Non-Fiction Book and Best Children's Book at the Publishers Association of New Zealand Book Design Awards. Weaving Earth and Sky won the non-fiction section of the Book of the Year Award of the New Zealand Post Children's Book Awards in 2003 and was shortlisted for the Leanza Elsie Locke Medal also in 2003. An award was named after him in 2009 to acknowledge his contribution to the writing and illustrating of children's picture books. In 2013, he became an officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, and in 2016, he received an honorary doctorate from the University of Canterbury. He has won the Leanza Russell Clark Medal for illustration 4 times and has had 14 works listed as Storylines Notable Books. In 2000, he won the Margaret Mahy Medal, and in 2013 was recipient of the Arts Foundation's Malison Rendell Illustrators Award. In 2018, he was given the Sir Kingi Ihako Award for services to Māori art and culture at the Creative New Zealand Te Waka Toi Awards. The selection panel commended the exceptional quality of this recipient's work and the powerful way in which he tells New Zealand stories. Please welcome Gavin Bishop, who belongs to Ngāti Pukeko, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Mahuta and Tainui.
Takes a bit of sorting out. I te timatatanga, ko te kupu. I te mutunga, ko te kupu. Tihe Mauri Ora. This is a very, very exciting occasion. You can't even imagine what it is to be standing here winning something like this. It's extraordinary. It's not only is it an acknowledgement of me and my work, but it's an acknowledgement of New Zealand children's literature. It is very undervalued. You know, people tend to think that, writing for kids, it's going to be something I'm going to do when I retire. I've heard people like, brain surgeons say, look, when I give up this, I'm going to be a children's author. You sort of want to say, look, you've left it too late. You've actually got to start when you're sort of young and work at it for the whole of your life, and you might get it right after that, but you may not. So it is a tremendous honour to win this award and to be in such tremendous company with the other award winners. It's also an occasion where I need to thank people. I need to thank my wife and my family, my friends, my colleagues, people who have been supporting me for the whole of the 40 years that I've been writing. But I also want to thank the publishers, especially the people who are here tonight. Gecko Press contacted me a few years ago and said, how about doing a book about the Endeavour voyage? I said, what, you want another one? There are hundreds out there. Surely the world doesn't need another book about the Endeavour. They said, yes, we do. And so they were right, because then I wrote Cook's Cook, the cook who cooked for Captain Cook, and it's been really, really popular. I didn't know it was going to do that. I had no idea. And then the same thing happened when the team at Penguin Random House, Catherine O'Loughlin and her mates, they rang up one day and they said, hey, how about doing a history book of New Zealand for 8-year-olds? A history of New Zealand for the last 65 million years. I said, oh, yeah, okay, take a bit of research. And they said, but more than that, you've only got 64 pages to do it in. Large format, not too much text, plenty of pictures, and it's got to be really exciting and interesting and so on. Honestly, anyone else would have said, no, I can't do that. That is elder abuse. I'm not as young as I was, and I find these sorts of challenges very, very demanding. But the marvellous thing is I want to thank these people, these editors and publishers who are here, because they have pushed me further into areas that I would never, ever have gone into on my own. I would have been sort of, dabbling away, writing about Mrs. McGinty and the bizarre plant and all these little sort of features. But suddenly to be sort of presented with the challenge of making something monumental has been fantastic. It has absolutely, I really, really sincerely thank them for doing that. But most of all, I'd like to thank our Prime Minister and the way she stands up and speaks out for the arts. I'm constantly getting emails from people overseas, especially in America and Britain, who say, hey, can we swap you? Can we have your Prime Minister? And I say, no way, you can't, I'm sorry. It's taken us a long time to get somebody as good as this. And so I really thank you very much for the support that you're giving the arts, because in a mature country, they celebrate the artists. And if you go to places, even like Russia, where we think it's kind of slightly suppressed, but their public spaces, their parks, their boulevards, their public squares have statues of their writers. And they're great artists. They celebrate them. But we haven't quite got to that stage yet. Here, we still...
make a wonderful bust.
There we are. There's a challenge for Creative New Zealand. Find the funding and you can have me. The other thing I want to say, though, is that I really, really enjoy the way you put into place initiatives that are going to encourage reading. Because I'm on the book council called Read New Zealand, and recently we put quite a lot of work into a submission to have a children's laureate established in New Zealand, like they have in Australia and Britain, Scandinavia, all countries all over the world. They have these people who are the spokesman or spokeswoman women for literature, children's literature. And I think that children's literature is one way of encouraging children into areas where they're going to avoid future social problems. I think the crime rate would probably drop. And, well, you know, I just think, you know, white supremacists will just disappear. I just think if you could read, there's half your problems. Something like 85% of people in prison can't read. So I don't know what that says, but I think it says a lot. Anyway, nō reira, haere ko te ngākau ki te a koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
The 2019 Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement for Fiction is the author of 13 novels and 3 novellas in genres ranging from autobiographical fiction to fantasy. She is an Arts Foundation New Zealand laureate and an officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to literature. Her works of fiction for adults include the multi-award winning Vintner's Luck, also made into a film by Nikki Caro and starring Keisha Castle-Hughes. A collection of essays, The Love School, won the biography and memoir section of the New Zealand Post Book Awards in 2009. She has also received some of the most prestigious international honours for her young adult fiction, such as Dream Hunter, Dreamquake and Mortal Fire. Other novels include Wake, published by Corsair in 2013, and The Absolute Book, launched last month, and described by reviewers as an unpredictable and intelligent work of imagination by a writer at the top of their game. In making their decision, the selection panel noted her enormous productivity, the exceptional quality of her writing, and the diversity of her work across genres, including young adult fiction. Please welcome Elizabeth Knox.
It's like having a temporary butler. Yeah, I could handle that. If anyone's thinking of doing a sculpture of me, you know, in this, you know, if you're going to do a sort of a Roman emperor type bust of Gavin, I want something kinetic because I'm not feeling very kinetic these days. Okay, now I do the business with the glasses. I had to write a speech because otherwise I would have, done what I'm doing. For about 10 years between when their daughters left home and Dad lost his licence and confidence after a couple of accidents while reversing in the supermarket car park, Mum and Dad would go on late summer, long, exploratory driving holidays. They'd nose about, Dad with his 2 Canons photographing landscape, the sun-blistered Jarrah water wheel at Mount White Station where Mum's father had spent the first 21 years of his life, or turns on the glistening sands of Packawaw Estuary. Mum would collect stones, not the geologist's pink quartz or olivines or separation point granite, but stones for which she had her own names, honeycombed or ice cream. One year in Jackson's Bay, Mum left her whole holiday's stash of stones on the porch of their motel and it vanished overnight. There'd been a friendly weka that evening eyeing up their plates of boxed chicken chow mein. The weka was Mum's prime suspect. "Blow me down, my stones were all gone," Mum wrote to me on a postcard. "Bother him, the jolly nuisance," and "I'm miffed." When I'm writing, I often think of Mum's words, the way her time sits inside them, as time sits inside all words. And I think of that weka. There are things I summon to mind whenever I sit down to write something difficult, either painful and knotty, or some scene on which a whole novel depends, and there are a lot of those. Some days I'm loading a revolver, thumbing the brass cases of bullets into the chamber of a gun. More often, I'm Mum's thieving weka, patiently and illicitly moving valuables from one place to another, porch to page in my case. But even though I'm alone, any writing room is the dark depth of night. Unlike the weka, I'm sifting things from hidden to visible. The writing life is like that. It isn't the movie montage of a writer peering at a screen and biting their thumbnail, a waste paper basket overflowing with balled up pages beside them. It isn't the other gigs, though they're part of it, being the teacher who motivates and illuminates, or the speaker who moves people with sermons or showmanship. The writing life is quiet and wild and covert, and I'm very grateful to all the people who over the years have enabled me, for the confidence and goodwill of Creative New Zealand and the Arts Foundation of New Zealand, for the ongoing energy of the International Institute of Modern Letters, of bookshops, libraries and writers' festivals, for the kind support of my friends, for the valiant support of publishers, particularly Victoria University Press, and for the brave and sustained support of my family, my sister Sarah, my son Jack, and always, always Fergus. And in the end, my readers, who, whenever they climb into bed and crack the spine of any one of my novels, are the same as me, quiet and wild and private. Their attention and interest is the life of books and the afterlife of writers. Thank you.
The 2019 Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement for Poetry is a New Zealand poet, editor and translator based in the United Kingdom, whose literary career spans at least 55 years. Her first book of poetry, The Eye of the Hurricane, was published in New Zealand in 1964, and her latest, Collected Poems, was published just in February this year. In between, she's had 8 collections published by Oxford University Press and a range of others by Blood Axe Books and Victoria University Press. The poems in her recent collection, Hoard, published in 2017 by VUP, are described as possessing vigour and linguistic freedom and giving the poetic fingers to 1960s convention and sexual conformity. She's also published translations from Romanian and medieval Latin poetry and edited several anthologies. She has written libretti and text for a number of musical works and collaborated with composer Gillian Karawe Whitehead, producing 5 works spanning from 1980 to 2016. She is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature and the Academy of New Zealand Literature. She holds honorary degrees from Victoria University of Wellington and the University of London and was awarded the Queen's Gold Medal for Poetry in 2006 and in 2008 was named Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for Services to Literature. She was born in New Zealand but has lived in England since 1963, maintaining strong ties to New Zealand through regular visits. She lives in London and has dual British and New Zealand citizenship. The panel commended her for the quality of her significant body of work, her critical contribution to New Zealand poetry from the 1960s, and an extraordinary career both in New Zealand and overseas. Please welcome Fleur Adcock.
You can hold up the whole country. You can manage that. I've written my speech down too, like Elizabeth, and I have the business with the glasses too. So here we are. It's in my pocket. And many, many thanks, Prime Minister, to you and to everyone else involved in bringing me here for this amazingly generous award. To Helen Clark, who initiated it, to Creative New Zealand, to my publishers, to all the people who did the organising and everyone else. There must be more people than I know about, and including the people who nominated me and voted for me. I can't tell you what a great pleasure it is to be standing here in a civilised parliamentary democracy led by a Prime Minister with honourable principles, in contrast to the disgraceful mess of Brexit Britain, where I live. My relationship with New Zealand has been somewhat up and down over the years. I'm very grateful to have been forgiven for that. I was always happy to come here to see my beloved extended family, but I didn't always feel so affectionate towards the country itself. And then a few years ago, I gradually noticed I was falling in love with it again. Something to do with maturity, perhaps. If so, it was rather belated. Anyway, I'm finding it increasingly easy to regard the country of my birth as home. And this evening, there's an additional factor, a little accident of location. For 5 years in the 1950s, when I was married to Alistair Campbell, a previous recipient of this award, I lived in Tinnagory Road at number 245, exactly opposite this building. When our 2 little boys were born while we were here, they're the 2 tall, bearded men I have here somewhere. And when I looked out of my attic bedroom window in the mornings, the view was of the elm trees and little children going up to the dental clinic, which was this building. So I have a particular fondness for this part of Wellington and for New Zealand and Wellington in general. I'm honoured to follow in the footsteps of Alistair and some of my other dear friends who've been given this award, including my sister Marilyn Duckworth, who had the fiction one. And it's a particular honour to meet you, everyone's favourite Prime Minister. My English friends are all very, very envious. So, thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Ngā mihi nui. But before you go too far away, we have a gift for you. There are signed copies of tonight's recipients' latest books. They're a gift on behalf of this evening's recipients and come with special thanks from their publishers. Kia ora. And congratulations again to all of tonight's recipients, to Dr. Mere Whanga, Gavin Bishop, Elizabeth Knox and Fleur Adcock, and to their whānau and supporters who are here with them. Please help them celebrate tonight, and please encourage your friends, family and colleagues along to our lunchtime event at Unity Books tomorrow. I'll be chairing our event there. It begins at 12 p.m. So finally, I'd like to invite back our colleague Haniko Te Kurupa, along with Creative New Zealand staff and Arts Council members, to lead us in a closing waiata himene whakaaria mai. Thank you everyone and good evening. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora tātou. Kua rongo tātou katoa ko wai nā kaiwhiwhi i nā tangana, nei ka hoki anō ki taga kōrero koutou nā kaiwhiwhi nei te mihi mai oha kia koutou mai a tātou katoa. A reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So, yes, who's going to start off our waiata? Kia tauna manaakitanga o te runga rawa ki runga i a tātou kua hui nei mōna mahi toi, ho mai tō kātou kororia kia mea te ai tātou i runga toi no tapu ai hukaraiti. Āmene.
Kia ora katoa.